Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon. This is Teacher Talk, PGCPS Teacher Talk, and this was initiated into the county by Rosette Barner-Wiley and myself, Kashia Thorpe. I am the LifeChanger of the Year for 2018-2019, and also the current Global Teacher Prize winner. And this talk is under the leadership of Mallory Manash in partnership with the Prince George's County Public Schools. And this is also sponsored by the National Life Group's LifeChanger of the Year program. And Teacher Talk covers a variety of relevant topics from today's K-12 school employees, including remote learning, social emotional learning, and other social justice topics. And so during these sessions, what we do as PGCPS teachers and school employees are we share thought-provoking ideas and insights while allowing teachers, administrators, and all levels of staff to collaborate, share best practices, gain experiences, and just really network with each other. So thank you so much for coming to our session today. And our topic today is going to be teaching across disciplines and how really to get students to love the subjects that you teach. We have a great panel here today from different subject areas, and I'm going to have them go ahead and introduce themselves. So I'm going to start off with Anne-Marie.
Good evening, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I am Anne-Marie Maloney. I am a middle school reading English language arts teacher. I am happy to be part of the National Board Certified Teacher family, so I have to throw that out there. I am also an arts integration lead teacher, as well as the other hat I wear is I belong to something called the University of Maryland Writing Project. So I am just happy and delighted to be joining the panel today.
Thank you so much. And the next person is Jeanette Vienna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janet Vienna Clark Green, and I am a middle school talented and gifted coordinator. I'm excited to be here today. I'm always excited to hear from my colleagues and also to share with them best practices, because we're all in this together in order to engage students and make sure that we're learning from each other, because with us working together as a team, the chances of student success multiply. So I'm excited this evening, and I look forward to learning from you and you learning from me also.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we're going to go to Cynthia.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
It happens.
Okay, my name is Cynthia Stewart. I'm a special educator for 22 years. So I have the disciplines of English, math, government, and one other one, business that I'm involved in. I'm a teacher at the Potomac High School, and I am the special educator for the 10th grade academy and the 3DE program.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Badu.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is my name is Mr. Babu George. It's a BABU. That's Babu.
Babu.
Okay, so glad to see you all, and really, excited to hear from each other and then learning from each other. I work at High Point High School as a science department coordinator, a couple of other hats like, I should say, career academy coordinator, and previous Saturday school coordinator. So, I'm a science teacher and a science department coordinator, working at High Point High School for the last 18 years, science department coordinator for 12 years. And I'm really, interested in the topic because, if you do not connect the lives of our students with what they learn, you lost them. So if you want to get them interested, connect their learning with their lives. And if they can apply what they learn in their lives, you got them. And also, if you do not create a connection with your students, they are not going to love the subject that you teach. So we will just talk about it further, and so you get to hear from each other. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And the next person that's joining us today is Mr. Jacob Scott. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Jake Scott. I am a high school math teacher, math department chair here at International High School at Langley Park. I have 20, maybe 23, I stopped counting after 20 years in education, and I love it, and I'm honored to be here with you all.
All right, thank you so much. So this is our panel today, and we have quite a variety on our panel. So we have math, we have English, we have science, and we also have tag, we have special education. So this is a diverse panel that we're going to have today. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. And this is very important because we know that as teachers in science, math, and English are some of the core subjects. So I really look forward to your sharing today. So we'll just start off by our conversation that we know math, science, and English are core subjects that students must pass, especially to graduate high school. And students really feel pressure to pass these courses. And even in the earlier grades, students are prepared to do their best. You know, teachers try to prepare students to do their best on like the state assessments in these particular subjects. Yet sometimes it seems to be that these subjects are so rigorous, and oftentimes students are discouraged because of the challenging content they cannot really understand sometimes. So for students, as they get closer to graduation, right, they also question whether or not they need these subjects in particular, other than English, maybe sometimes, if they will need subjects like algebra to really graduate, because sometimes they think about whether or not they will run into algebra later in their lives, or they'll need to know what the different kind of rocks are that exist, or what the meaning of photosynthesis is. So they really try to question content sometimes. So that leads me to the question of how do we get students to move past some of these stigmas about learning to beginning their true learning in the classroom? And I'm going to go ahead and just really pull in Mr. Babu. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Okay, so let's start from where you started with the photosynthesis. I mean, for a student, I mean, if they know what is happening in photosynthesis, the easy thing is, I mean, just how they breathe. Very simple, okay? And if they can make that connection, if there are no plants, they are not going to get oxygen. That's the connection you make. So, and also, if plants don't do photosynthesis and store food for you, what you're going to eat? So that's another thing. So if there is no photosynthesis, if they are not going to get any food or they have no oxygen to live, that itself is a connection. So unless you link what they're learning with their lives, I mean, not maybe always, but then being a science teacher, and I'm a big proponent of active classrooms. So normally, I mean, I take them out of my classroom to teach photosynthesis and respiration. So if they understand what is photosynthesis, I tell them the opposite is respiration. Okay, just opposite. So because when students have difficulty in understanding those chemical equations and chemical reactions, especially photosynthesis and respiration, I tell them, just learn one. Just learn any one, and then you reverse it. You get the opposite of it. So number one thing is, I mean, making connections. And also you talk about this state test. I know it's a big monster for all of us, right? And I'm telling you, many a times, these tests, I mean, I have gone through this test, many of them English, math, science, but I'm trying to tell you, more than the content, most of these tests, more than 70%, these are reading tests. If the students are able to read and comprehend what is written there, they can easily get that question, get their answers done. When I'm telling you this, I'm not just telling you this out of my mind or brain or something. I did research on that with the high school students in High Point High School, also with the baccalaureate middle school students. Just had a summer program for 3 years in a row. And we taught them, basically when I say we taught them means, I mean, we did not even teach them, but 16 days, 1 month in the summer, Monday through Thursday, we had classes for them from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock. And we never taught them any subjects. We just taught them the basics. I call them as back to basics. So we actually, I mean, first week, we couple of teachers, I mean, we choose the topics for them. Second week, we choose the topics only for 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. Then Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, they choose their topics, what they want to learn, okay? And just for example, we didn't limit. They wanted to learn about a recession, they want to learn about economics, whatever. So, but in science, we taught them the basics of what is an atom, what's a cell, and those kind of things, okay? And in math, also the basic math, but we gave them newspaper like Washington Post and the Baltimore Sun, and then asked them to go through it, even for ask them to graph stuff. We built rockets and fired them. On Friday, the PG County is closed. So Friday, we met at Buckloads Middle School. We put them in our cars. We went for field trips from morning till evening. So what we did, since I want to have some metrics, I had statisticians from University of Maryland and Bowie State University. So I actually, got the state test for biology from the ETS. And they gave us 10 questions, and they gave us 2009 paper. That was the hardest paper ever. And then we had a pre-test and a post-test. And after 4 weeks, I'm telling you, without teaching, what we taught them was, critical thinking and analysis, and how to read and comprehend. All of my students, including the middle school students, they all passed those tests with the distinguished. And when I wrote my paper, the first thing ETS asked me to take their name out of my paper. Because what we did was, make them comfortable to read and analyze. So what I'm trying to say is link their learning. I don't know how much time I have. You can always stop me. Anytime you want to stop me, please stop me. So link their learning.
Share.
Okay.
Great information.
Yeah. So link their learning with what they're learning, and then make them understand what is important for them in their lives. So if you can do that connection, just like you started with the photosynthesis. No photosynthesis, you will not be talking here, I will not be talking here. Okay. And we talk about all this global warming, all kinds of stuff. But then, so link with what they have in their lives. And that's what I say. So as I said, I proved it. And then when I wrote my paper, as I said, ETS found that I made them jobless because they charged $10,000 for 12 tests. And that means, so you can imagine how much money they make from all these things. I'm not going against any of the establishments here, but then where we lost our connection, because I'm telling you, our students lost the connection to the basics.
Yeah.
Okay. To me, K through 12 education is no rocket science. We want to have them, provide them the basics, make them to apply their knowledge. Why they are breaking out on their test in AP test and the SAT exams, they're unable to apply what they're learning. That means they are not making that connection. Okay. Yeah. That's the problem. So research clearly proved that, if I don't make a connection with what I'm doing, then, say, for example, I love the subject, I made a connection, that's why I'm here. Otherwise, I will not be rushing here from my department meeting. I just reached home and I am under the weather and I'm not even feeling good, but still I'm here because I make that connection. So we have to make that connection with the students. And for example, we have to reduce the number of testing. If you ask about the number of testing, we test them as soon as the school opens, we test them. Okay, that's a fall testing. Then we have a spring testing. Then right now we have a summer testing going on, and how many days we are losing, shutting down the entire building. And many students even lost the seriousness of testing. We're testing them starting freshman year, sophomore, juniors, seniors. So make that connection, and then we really have to do a real soul search where we lost them.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that. What I hear you say is that connection is so important. And I definitely see someone in the chat as well who agreed with you that students respond when learning relates to life experiences, which allows them to make connection. I'm going to have Cynthia. Cynthia, I know that you are a English teacher and you do math government, but mostly in the area of special education. So please share your perspective.
I work with a variety of students that I followed from the 9th grade. So I was pulled out of the regular classroom to work with the students and parents to be integrated into this 3DE model. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. And then we went on to the 10th grade 3DE model. The thing about what I do is I go to each of the different collaborative plannings. I go to one for English, I go to one for math, I go to the one for science, and I go to the one for history, and I understand what they're getting ready to teach. And then I plan with each individual teacher to see how is this going to look. So I believe in universal design learning. And I believe that if we eliminate some of those barriers to teaching, then all of the students will have a chance to benefit from it. Now, about the 3DE model, we do that out of competencies. So the competencies that we learn in a 3DE model is something that we put into every classroom. So this is an academy within the academy. Currently, right now, we're at the end of the 3DE model, but we've worked with companies like Home Depot. We've worked with some of the financial institutions in New York City, down on Wall Street. So the kids get a chance to be evaluated, create a plan, and be evaluated by people who are in the real world environment. I was just writing down some notes. So it's 3DE by Junior Achievement. It's inquiry based. So they are given a question, then they have to answer that question in the form of a presentation to solve a problem. It's project-based learning, application of knowledge. It's interdisciplinary, so we have to use all of the different core courses in order to teach it out of. It's integrated. We get real world engagement, feedback. We have representatives from the companies come and they vote on the kids. This past year, we had #1. We were voted #1 in a presentation, and last year too. And then we have competency-based assessments. Currently, we just had our 3DE kickoff today for the very last challenge. And the kids are excited about it. They get to present. They get to be teachers themselves. They get to bring out the information that they want. I can't share their work, but if we were able to, I'd be able to share it. And then they compete against each other through a series of inquiry, different levels. When they get to the very end, we send our top 3. So it's been very good. It's been a very good system. We plan on moving that into the 11th grade and to the 12th. So I'm with the founding group.
Well, thank you for that. That's great information. I hope that is something that a lot of different other schools will catch on to, because I think that's so important. And when you talk about integrating the community into it so that students actually see the relevance to their lives and how that will play out in the greater scope of their lives and their community, in terms of even as it relates to them later getting jobs, you know, and introducing them to those people in their community who would actually evaluate them later. I think that's a great connection to have. So as we move on, I want to bring Anne-Marie into this conversation. Anne-Marie, why do you think it's so important that our students really love the subjects that we teach? We hear Cynthia talk about a gamut of different ideas that she is helping to build into these different content area. Why do you think it's so important?
Because students, once they love what they are doing, once they understand their world, they are able to change and be the change makers that we want them to be. I have to comment really in terms of the perspective, how to get that student really engaged and even care about English, because at the middle school level, they lose some of that warm and fuzzy. They lose that love of reading that they might have had in elementary school. And I'm familiar with that because I used to teach in elementary school. And I take a look and I ask why. And what I have discovered is they love creativity, they love curiosity, they love choice. And unfortunately, they lose some of those things along the way. So I approach RELA, I approach reading, English language arts, and I always tell my students, RELA is life. In terms of, you have a command of language, so you are able to influence others. You have a presence where you can walk into a room and people will know you are there. How you use your words, how you position your words is an ability to influence others. So let's study that. Let's take a look at how we can develop our own identities from that. Loving reading, loving English also has to do with expanding the breadth and the scope of your world. Knowing the possibilities of your life. Sometimes it begins with story. Sometimes it begins with understanding, okay, why is this character in Ghost always on the run? Why is Maniac McGee running? Okay, are these two characters related? And once you can understand that story, then you can move it through into higher, you know what? In life, I'm going to encounter people who make choices. What is driving their choices? And how do I react to those choices? So if I can help students to see the connection between what they are reading and help them connect to how it applies to real life, that is my goal. And that is how I see students becoming enthusiastic about reading. And of course, it conveys over to writing as well.
All right, thank you so much for that perspective. Let me bring Mr. Jacob Scott into this conversation as well. I know you are a math teacher. So why do you think it is so important for students to love your subject? I know math is sometimes some students' favorite, and then there are other students who are like, I cannot do math. How does math even relate to my life? Especially high school students, they're like, I will never do a trigonometry question, a calculus question, a college algebra. I will never ever see a squared plus b squared equals c squared. How does that even relate to what I'm going to do in my life? Because I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a English teacher. You know, why would I need math? So why don't you help us? Why is it so important? Why is your subject so important for students to love?
I think that your question is an interesting one, because to be honest with you, I don't think it's important for students to love math. Math is one of those things, there are some who love it and others who love to hate it. But I think when we think about the development of a child, I mean, kids go from, being infants where they want to know everything possible and they're curious about everything until they, just like Miss Melanie mentioned, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, when they in elementary school, they love reading, but then they, when they transition to middle school, they fall out of love with it, because it's more, what do I need to know? How is this going to help me to get through my day? And one of the things that I do with students is I'm very honest with them. Just last week, after going through the Algebra 2 curriculum, where students were learning about sinusoidal functions and trigonometry, I said, guys, let me be honest with you. I'm about to graduate you, seniors. And so I just spent a week teaching you, or 2 weeks teaching you about trigonometric equations, but the likelihood of you using that once you walk out of these doors is slim to none. Let me tell you what you're going to need. So I took them to a program and showed them a 7th grade skill about how to read a frequency table, how to analyze a chart. And so the students, their eyes lit up, because they're like, wow, they love the fact that I'm being honest with them, because I think that a lot of times as a teacher, we want to make the kids love the subject as much as we love it. You don't need to love it. Like, for example, as a math teacher, I don't love reading, but I respect reading. I respect writing. I respect those things. And I understand, like, photosynthesis. For example, my wife is an avid gardener, but just understanding how plants eat. I wanted to beautify my yard at an Airbnb that I run. So how am I going to plant these things? Am I going to spend $3,000 calling in a landscaper? Or am I going to read, okay, first of all, reading, and gain some appreciation for photosynthesis and some appreciation for math? What is 1 gallon, for example? Just understanding those things and appreciating them and sharing with the students and being very honest with them. You're not going to, the likelihood of you using this aspect of math is slim to none. But I could pick up any newspaper, any brochure, and I guarantee you there's going to be a chart, there's going to be a graph where someone's trying to sell you something, and they're going to use data and statistics to try to do that. And so I think the big thing is just being honest with the students.
So let's get a little bit controversial. Based on your answer, right? You did say that from my perspective, what I hear you say is that there are things in math that students will never probably use or they don't need to graduate, right?
Yes.
And so how do we determine, or how does a school district determine what's necessary for students to use? What do they need
I mean, I
to
think
survive?
I think the school district is doing their part where they're saying, look, we have to put this blanket out there. But the reality is, I mean, you know, some teachers' classes are more attractive than others, right? And some students can go through your class and feel like they've not learned anything. I think that as teachers, when we venture off of that beaten path, and, you know, when I'm sharing with this student, first of all, we need to know our students, right? What are your aspirations? So I said, if you're going to work at McDonald's, no, you will never need the quadratic formula. But if I know I have a student who is an aspiring electrician, then I say, hey, you're going to need to know about ratios. You're going to need to know about Ohm's law. You're going to need to know how to multiply, you know. Being able to do some mental math will help you to save time on that job. And so I think that is where we as the professionals really have to work to do justice to what the school system has provided.
All right, well, thank you so much for that very detailed response. From my perspective, I'm an English teacher, of course. And from my perspective, you know, I think I had a conversation with some students in my class today when I was subbing, and we were actually talking about the subjects that they do. And some students were telling me, you know, different subjects that they prefer, because of course I proctored a AP exam. So we were just going over just how, you know, how they felt about the content, how they felt just personally, not talking about the actual AP exam, but just how they felt in general about how they did, you know, how they performed and if they were well prepared. Students were saying they didn't like the subject or what content they didn't like, and so on. And they were thinking about, you know, so how is this going to be relevant to my life, this part of history and so on. And, you know, then we went into different subjects like math, you know, and they brought it up. And for me, I was telling them that even though there are different aspects of math that you will never use, I was thinking about more so the skill that they actually get from applying themselves, you know, that level of critical thinking, because some math are harder than others and they require a lot of brain function to figure out those answers. And as I was thinking about the level of critical thinking that students need to achieve for autonomy of learning, I'm thinking that stuff like calculus and trigonometry and those higher level math bring them to that level. So that's just from my perspective. I know you're a math teacher, you probably have a different perspective, but that's just from my perspective in terms of all students need to be, you know, whether or not they are an aspiring electrician or a McDonald's worker or an engineer, they still need that level of critical thinking skill to bring them to that level of learning how to just solve problems in general. But that's just my take on it, Mr. Scott. And let's go ahead and bring Dana into the conversation. I see you nodding your head, Dana.
I feel like what you just said, critical thinking is so important for all our students and our scholars today, in keeping them engaged, even if there might not be of interest, whatever, then you broaden that interest level of those discussions in your classroom and bring those other students that feel uncertain about where they're heading or that interest of, I know I'm a science teacher and we do teach with STEM of introducing them a different types of careers at hand, like a biologist. And then I not only stay with STEM, I broaden it with what else, like a manager or judicial system. And I get to know, I do a questionnaire with my students day one when they come in the classroom. I give them a questionnaire like expectations, what they want to, you know, learn and where their aspirations, their futures are. So then when I'm teaching them, I'm understanding that individual, that goals are what they say, you know, what they want. And then throughout the year, we go back and revisit. And some of them said, I changed my mind. I don't want to be a manager any longer, Miss Johnson, because I saw that this interests me right here in this subject, along with, because with science is broad. We have reading, we have mathematics and science, we have history that relates with science. And those students, and I introduce them with all walks, and then we cross curriculum at our school, where I'm cross curriculum with, because we have clusters, like I'm with Team Morgan. So we share different views and different subject matter with each other. And then we put on different research projects that we cross curriculum with each other, like the reading teacher, the science teacher, the history teacher. So we create a cross curriculum research-based project for the students, where they get to incorporate all of the subjects at the end of the year cross curriculum project. And then not only that, they're learning and they're gravitating with subjects that they don't even like. And then at the end of the school year, I see that a lot of them are saying, you know what, I really do like math. I didn't know it was this fun, Ms. Johnson, when we're doing this project. So we can inspire minds and leaders as we try to fit and cope, their needs and respect their views with the subjects they might not have interest with.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. And I don't want to neglect Janet Vienna. We're going to bring you into the conversation as well. And I just want to ask you, as we move forward in the conversation, I know that you are a tag teacher. So when we think about that higher level of critical thinking, and when we think about pushing these students a little bit further with content, how do you, what are some of the strategies you use to engage some of your students and encourage them? Because I know when they get to that level, even though some of these content areas, math, English, and science tend to be some of the more challenging subjects, and you are the tag, you're in the tag area, how do you push those students to that advanced level and still get them engaged and encouraged?
I do love how everyone talks about those cross-curricular contents and subjects, tying everything together so that they know that while they're doing reading language arts, and they say, oh, it's reading language arts, you're going to need this for social studies, you're going to need this in math, you're going to need this in science. And I remember, talking to a student, and she's like, why do I need to learn this math? I want to be a lawyer. I said, when you become a lawyer and you get that big business where they're trying to build this community, and you have to defend these developers who want to go out there and destroy this habitat, you'll have to know the measurement and everything. So even though you want to be a lawyer, this math is going to be really relevant there if you want to get the big bucks. And they're like, okay, all right, I see that. Or, so when you make this relevant for them, it is important. I love the cross-curricular activities because I really love project-based learning, where students are learning new materials and it's not just focused on one content. If they're doing a social studies lesson on various communities, tying that in with the English class and the math class and the science class, social studies class, and having them working together in a community with their peers, and even them being a part of the learning process, because we're not just going to say to them, okay, we're going to build a community. They're going to have that choice and that voice in what they are learning, and they're going to present their new information based on how they want to demonstrate this new learning that they're getting at. So giving them a voice and choice is important, giving them an opportunity to work together collaboratively as a community, maybe doing a menu project where they are coming up with the different assignments for this one concept that you want them to learn, or this new concept that you want them to learn, but they're choosing how they want to present that information to you is important also. Students love this voice and choice assignment where their voice matters. They are taking ownership for their learning, and they're being pushed outside this box that sometimes we do create for them as learners, and they're finding out, they're exploring, they want to go out there and make a difference with the content we're teaching, but they're finding this out on their own. So it's like we're holding their hand and we gradually let them go. And then sometimes it's just amazing the things that kids are able to create or come up with when you just give them the idea and encourage them, give them feedback along the way, because sometimes some of them will veer off, and you just bring them back based on this feedback, and it is amazing what they're able to produce. So giving them that voice and choice, cross-curricular activities, those higher order thinking skills that you're encouraging in your classrooms are very, very important.
Thank you so much. Yes, those definitely are important. And so when we think about this whole idea of cross-disciplinary or cross-curricular, I'm going to ask Anne-Marie, how do you make student engagement central to the design of your curriculum and your lesson plans? So Anne-Marie and Cynthia, won't you give us your perspective?
Okay, so what I love about what I do in teaching this subject area, first of all, I hear everybody talking about coming out of our silos and meeting across the aisle and saying, okay, your expertise, your content and my content together can create something grander. And the benefit of that is that a student gets to see the seamless transition of skills, that when you write in English, it's the same type of writing that you can apply in social studies, the same type in AVID, and so on and so forth. The wonderful thing that in terms of engaging students is arts integration. Prince George's County Public School, we do a few things right, okay? And PGCPS, we have a program where we take a look at music, drama, dance, visual arts, and media arts. And what I do is I'm able to either take whole lessons that are provided or developed, and I can integrate that with content in terms of reading. So for example, we partner with the Smithsonian American Art Museum, affectionately called SAM. So what I might do if I want to get my student into analyzing a particular text, and as a sidebar, who determines the canon of the text that students are reading? And that's oftentimes why they tune out and they get bored. So I have to deliver this canon because it's curriculum based and it's connected to all of our standards. But to gauge their interest, I'm bringing in arts integration. So I might bring in some artwork of Romare Bearden and say, let's take a look at what is going on here. And also another application of all of our subjects, think about how math plays into that in terms of the elements and the symmetry that you see in pictures and so forth. There's analysis and collaboration, and then students discover, oh, I didn't see that before when I saw this. And then I can take that interest in something that excites them and transfer it over into the canon, into the text that I am required to teach from the curriculum. So when they can see and meet those connections, they motivate themselves and drive themselves. I'd like to add some examples of going across. For example, in science, I partnered with my science colleague, and he was teaching the kids genetics. And so he had the kids come up with their own rap, their own words towards what genetics is about. But then I go over to my AVID colleague and I said, you know what? You're focused on student goals and college and career aspirations. And she's able to bring in self-portraiture. And I said, well, you know, we have to have some reading English language arts in there. So instead of having the traditional, this is me, introduce yourself at the beginning of the year, let's do an Ariki poem. And then the kids can get excited in terms of giving praise onto themselves. And just one more example, my social studies colleague, we're doing argumentative writing. And that often is the type of writing that students struggle with, and text evidence, and why do I have so much text evidence, and what is a thesis, and oh my goodness, I keep getting it right, and where is my analysis? But when we collaborate, and she is using, and she conducted a mock trial. And by them seeing the mock trial and having to participate, they had to be judges, they had to be pro and con in terms of the legal team, and they had to have the person who's on trial. And you combine that with the writing that they have to do and the research that they have to do, that creates fire, that creates heat. And that is when students become the drivers of their own learning. And sometimes as teachers, okay, you go ahead and fly, because I have found I don't have to be an expert in legal affairs. In that example, I don't have to be an expert as a scientist, but if you can get kids to be excited about something, you can get them to go forth and they will discover their own world. One of the things about my background is teaching is actually a second career for me. I've been doing this over 20 years, but I started out in private sector. So I've seen the RFPs, the request for proposals. I've seen the corporate environments. I've seen the management of teams. And one of the things that has changed from then to now in our world is that students are entering a place where it's non-traditional jobs. You thought about growing up and you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a business person. Students are designing and creating their own positions. They are saying, I want this element and that element, and they're taking pieces of the puzzle and pulling it together, helping them to achieve that. That's where the interdisciplinary collaboration comes in, to help them see the possibilities. Yes, I know, I get excited.
I feel your passion, but we have a lot of ideas on here that we also need to get through, and we have a few more ideas that we have to touch base on as well. So I'm going to ask you all to keep your responses short and just right to the point, because we really want to make sure that everyone who is on the panel get an opportunity to share their great ideas, and the audience also gets an opportunity to take away a lot of your best practices as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to say that, you know, as we talk about how learning is shared across the board to improve knowledge and strengthen the teaching teams, it is definitely beneficial in how teachers collaborate across disciplines and transfer their knowledge into what students really need to learn. And you have proven that in a lot of the examples that you have shared. So I want to go ahead and just touch on what does it mean to, as we come out of what you were just explaining with cross-disciplinary, what does it mean to democratize learning? There we go. What does it mean? Anyone can jump in and share. And why is it beneficial?
Okay, so to me, I mean, spread the wealth, okay? So just for example, I mean, I'm telling you, we have collaborative meetings, and then teachers, I mean, we have different teams. So in my department, I mean, we all have common planning. That means everyone is free during one period on every alternative days. So we come together as a team every week. Bi-weekly it is mandatory, but then most of them meet every week. And then they always share best practices. And today in my department meeting, I mean, we were talking about vertical teaming. So we are creating a document for vertical teaming. And then there's a biology teacher who is actually teaching the Big Bang Theory and the beginning of the universe. And the physics teacher intervened and said that, I mean, so we knew that, I mean, the physics teacher could be a better person to teach that portions, but then he's teaching his physics and AP physics. Then we had a conversation where he said, I mean, he would actually, I mean, create some document online and then share with that teacher. So to me, I mean, that is democratizing the knowledge, because I mean, you are actually sharing your knowledge with another person to move her or move him forward.
And I see Dana has her hand up. Go ahead, Dana. Thank you.
Okay. Learning walks with ILT team to improve our learning and engagement and sharing different in collaboration with our professional development. Learning walks are so essential, and that's how our school is really making a difference with helping with our cross curriculum and with different colleagues that need that extra support, even those not even extra support, but that's extra knowledge of how to regain your different styles, learning styles, and complementing and redirecting those different things that your students can engage and make fun and be aware of cognitive. As far as me being an educator, that helps me out as well. Those learning walks have really inspired and uplifted my learning style and put more emphasis on different type of instruction to deliver to my scholars. So learning walks are very essential for improvement too with this subject matter that we're engaging, we're discussing now.
And I wanted to add that I do think that teachers are the best professional development presenters that they have, especially when you go into a class and you see a teacher with this great, wonderful idea, and you've never thought about it from that perspective. When we have our collaborative planning, we give them the opportunity to share these ideas with their colleagues, and it's just this moment when a teacher says, wow, I didn't see this way, or I'm going to try this, and then they'll try it and they'll come and share how the students engaged in it and how it made learning fun for their students. So I do think that is very, very important when teachers become their own teachers within these collaborative sessions.
And which is exactly what we're doing today. Teachers teaching teachers, teachers sharing their best practices and sharing information with others so that we are transferring learning. And this is the best space because we know our students and we have our in classroom experiences, and it's best when we share it because we already have tried it and know what works and know what doesn't work. And then we share the best part of it for others to try.
If I could just add to that,
Yes.
I think that when that question is asked, oftentimes we think about the adults in the room. But one thing that was very enlightening for me was just, I tell my students at the beginning of the school year, I felt overwhelmed because so many students, Mr. Scott, they're asking a million questions at the same time. And I said, you know what? How many teachers are in this room? And they said, one. And I said, no, there's a teacher right there, a teacher right there, a teacher right there. And just really working to empower the students to see themselves as stakeholders as well, because I don't think it's just the adults in the room who should be a part of that democracy, but I think that our clients also can be a part of that democracy as well. So,
correct.
That is so important. And thank you for adding that, Jacob. That is really important that we do not leave students out in the process, because at the end of the day, this is what this webinar was about, right? How do we make sure that students love what we teach and make sure that they're engaged? So they have to be involved in that process, which leads me to asking, how are students involved in the process of informing how you engage them in learning your particular content?
Well, I have student-led based discussions in my class where we have team leaders, and it starts off at the beginning of the school year. We're modeling and we redirecting how and why and setting ground rules. So now my students are they already learned the modeling style on how to lead, how to create those discussions, how, when, and those moments, and peer share thinking and using those equity sticks. So that's how my class has thrived. And I feel so great. All I have to do is just sit there, be that facilitator, whatever, and they're going all out. If you come in my classroom, only I have to just put my hand up or whatever, and then they center stage, they're taking over. And we have to model, like another colleague just said, those are our voices, those are our teachers. And that's what I always instill in my children as well, my scholars. They are our next leaders and teachers and future for tomorrow. And like I told them, and that's have this clear expectation. These are our future leaders of tomorrow, because our futures and our past is behind us, but our future is in front of us. So that's one thing I just strive for. And that's what we want to continue to see our students lead, not just be sitting there, but all take a part of what we're trying to, try and strive for, excellence, and why not the best.
As we move into 21st century learning, and we students become the center of our classroom, and teachers are not just there lecturing anymore, right? And so we give students more power in the classroom and make them become more autonomous learners as well. So as we get close to wrapping up, I am going to go around, and from each of you, give me some of your best strategies. Share with the audience some of the best strategies that you have used to make sure that students really love what you teach and how you encourage and engage them in your classroom and in your content, especially when it becomes difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with Mr. Babu.
All right. So, Cynthia said inquiry, and we have Janet said project-based learning, and Anne-Marie said making connections. So this is the three things I actually do in my classroom. And just like, we heard that, see, peer-to-peer interaction. So if the interaction is not happening in your classroom, there's no learning happening in your classroom. If your classroom is not noisy, then they are not learning. Okay, if you can have if you just have a silent classroom with the textbook work or copying the vocabulary and those kind of things going on, or you just be sage on the stage lecturing from a PowerPoint, it's not going to happen. Of course, you can use PowerPoints, but then in my classroom, the students do their presentations using their PowerPoint. Okay, so most of the time I empower them. So make it inquiry-based learning and project-based learning. So if there's inquiry, then they just apply their knowledge. At least they become inquisitive, and then they put their brain into there. Okay, if it is based on a project, they know they have to do something. Okay, I tell them in inquiry-based learning, I don't need any cookie cutter answers. Even if your answer is wrong, you make the claim with your evidence and reasoning. Okay, you support it. I just go with you, because if your answer is wrong in my way, but then if you can prove that your answer is right, there you go. As people say, science is all facts and figures. Yes, but then people can have different types of thoughts. For one person, a hurricane could be good, and another person should be bad. He can prove in both the ways, right? So some person, a snowfall is going to be good for the crop. Some person is bad for him. So they have to prove it. So that's what I want. Make connections and then give them the freedom to talk about it and then prove their thoughts.
Thank you so much. We're going to go to Cynthia.
I have a couple of things to say, so I'm gonna try to be short, quick, and to the point. First of all, McDonald's is more than hamburgers. It was one of my first jobs that I've ever gotten, and I rose through the ranks all the way to swing manager while I was going to school. And I had to use all the core competencies to get through it: mathematics, English, the politics of it all, and science, which is actually the processing of the hamburgers. I love experiential learning, and we try to push the boundaries for the students in our area, because the boundaries that they have are sometimes self-imposed. They really don't know a lot of things outside of their area. So for instance, I learn while they're learning, and I'm trying to not just get my point across, but to learn from them. And we found through one of the case challenges in the 3DE program that we were trying to make a customer service experience for the customer who's waiting in the airport. We've all done that, right? We always know how sometimes the planes don't come on time, the irate customers and all. Would you believe that over 80% of the kids that had never had that experience? So as teachers in the 3D program with the 4 competencies, we had to come together to bring that experience to them in the classroom. Because they said, I've never been on a plane. I've never been out of Washington, D.C. I've never done a lot of things. So there's so much room for that. And during these 2 years, I see a lot of examples for the core subject. So let me just run through it really quickly. With English, right? We have Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was writing sonnets and poems during the Black Death. They can relate to that because of COVID, right? We also do iambic pentameter. Hip hop is written in iambic pentameter. For math, we're doing circles, arcs, and radius. My father's way of teaching me math was applied mathematics. So he would build something, he would do something. My mother would financially show me how to use money. And so through that, my brother wound up being an engineer right now, and he's already patented some things for himself because of that mathematics. In government, there's a lot of issues going on there. We just had something where we had the kids take sides on cannabis. They were very interested in that. And we were looking at the movers and shakers that were happening, the CNN, MSNBC, the who, what, when, where, and why. So these past 2 years have given us a lot of fodder for that. In the applied sciences, we engage to allow for inquiry. We're on the spot vocabulary. And in the real world, our Green Club here at Potomac High School just won a grant for over $50,000. We have a recycling program, and we have a greenhouse. So I believe in the inside out approach. I believe in serving a variety of students, everybody inclusive environment, and leveraging our existing infrastructure. Thank you.
That was a lot, and we're actually coming close to the pretty much at the end of time, but I'm going to go ahead. I know it's so important that I give everyone a voice. I'm going to go with Mr. Scott, then Janet Vienna, then Anne Marie, and then Dana last. And please keep your responses very
Yeah,
short. Just give us some
sure.
quick strategies.
I've used technology to diagnose students' math literacy level when they come into my classroom, and celebrate their growths as I meet them where they are and bring them to higher levels.
Thank you so much. And I'm definitely a observer of that, and you do it really well. Janet?
I do think most of the ideas that we have has already been touched on: hands-on learning, cultural experiences. The experiences that our students bring to the learning environment is very, very important in order to get them engaged in inquiry-based learning, project-based learning. We love guest speakers. Sometimes we do have former students coming back to share their experiences with our students, cross-curricular content. And we've tried a focus of mine. I'm the National Junior Honor Society advisor, and I'm trying to build leaders, students who are going out into the world to take on the world. So in trying to get them engaged, I am developing their leadership skills. And I find that when we do this, I'm able to allow them to go out there and help make decisions within our school that affects them. And when they have a voice, when they're being heard, it makes a whole lot of difference for our students in engaging them.
Thank you so much. That's very important. I hear that you said developing students' voice, especially, is very important to that level of autonomy that we give students as well. Anne Marie?
Yes, absolutely. I am an advocate for integrating the arts in terms of engaging students and allowing them to see the possibilities. I believe giving students the ability to create, awaken something in their soul, in their spirit, and allowing students to find their voice. And all of the strategies and things we've talked about this evening, let them find their voice.
Thank you. And last but not least, Dana.
Okay, mine is bringing learning to life within my science classroom through real life experiences, hands-on manipulatives, and arts integration and cross curriculum.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I think someone else said, Mr. Badu, do you want to go ahead and share quickly? I know you shared first, but quickly before
okay, so I was telling that, so putting the art into STEM, that's we call it as STEAM. So when we build our cars, we built a couple of electric cars for competition at High Point. So our team, we named the team as STEAMers because, we put the art into STEM. That's called STEAM, STEAM. So
awesome.
And also, just one more thing, I heard this, I actually got McDonald's here and then I didn't say anything about it, but then see, this conversation of McDonald's comes quite often. I tell my students one thing: what happens if McDonald's decide to hire quality workforce one day? Because we have competition out there. So keep that in mind. So don't get anything less, think that, McDonald's is something less. So, so we really have to prepare our students for higher than that. But then getting the experience, getting that money is awesome, it's good, okay? But do not keep the standards low, please.
Well, thank you. You make a great point. This has been such an enriching conversation. I'm so sorry that we had such a short time, but hopefully we can add this again to our list of topics next year. And we thank you so much to our illustrious panel for this rich and encouraging discussion and for sharing all of these wonderful strategies. I've posted them all in the chat, and hopefully the teachers who have been participating today will actually copy some of those down and making sure that you implement them in your classroom. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot today. Please go to the LifeChangeroftheYear.org to register for our future sessions. There is one each month, but our final session for this school year, 2022, 2021-2022 will be on June 15th, and that is going to be on avoiding the summer slide. So please come back and join us so that we can share information with you that you can actually share with your students before they go off for the summer to help them avoid summer slide. And hopefully we also have a lot of resources that we'll share with you that you can share with students and parents as well in our next session on June 15th. So please check out the PGCPS Express as well for updates. And again, please register at lifechangeroftheyear.org. I am Keshia Thorpe and your moderator. Thank you again for joining us and have a wonderful evening.